This is a KMC X11 chain. Now I'm pretty certain that this is a genuine chain. First of all, because the chain has been on this bike for roughly 4,300 kilometers, and if I measure the wear, you'll see that my wear measuring tool doesn't even slip into the chain. So the wear is minimal at 4,000 kilometers. Secondly, I think it's a genuine chain because when I look at the details of the chain, they're all fairly clean. For instance, the lettering is well disposed around the edges of the holes in each of the chain links. Ironically, I purchased this chain via Aliexpress. I'll also compare it to a couple of chains that I purchased via eBay that I suspect are actually counterfeit items. Okay, here's the packaging of the two chains. The one on my left is the one that I bought via AliExpress and I believe is a genuine chain. And on the right is the one that I bought via eBay and I believe is a counterfeit item. First of all, when I received the one from AliExpress, the packaging was fully sealed. However, when I received the chains, in fact there were two chains from eBay, the packaging had already been opened on the one side here, so it's been rather ham-fistedly opened. You'll notice that there are subtle differences in the colour, there's subtle differences in the font, particularly if you look at the bottom of the S. If I look at this logo on what I think is the genuine one, this is all fairly cleanly printed. The edges are nice and sharp and the corners are pointy. However, if I look at the one that I got from eBay, the edges are less crisp, more speckly. So there appears to be some subtle differences in the packaging. Let's actually look at the chains. So this is the chain that I think is an original, and I'm going to look at the details. For instance, if you look at the KMC, it's nicely distributed around the outside of that hole in the side plate. Same at this side. Also, if you look at this sort of, I think they call it X-bridge design, these sculpted lines in here fit nicely within that X shape. And also the edges of that X are quite smooth. The inner plate is a little bit different as well, but the side plate is not completely flat. There's a bit of a chamfer on here, so those inner plates are actually shaped too. So this is what I think is probably the counterfeit chain, and let's go through those details again. First of all, the stamping on here, the KMC, is displaced from around the hole in the side plate. Also, the edges of this X-bridge not quite as sharp. You can see that this line down here overhangs the edge of this X-bridge. So some of this stamping is all misaligned. Next, if we look at the inner plates, you'll just notice that these are just completely flat. So there's no sculpting down the edge here. So if I show you the difference between these two, the counterfeit item is at the bottom and the genuine item at the top. You may also be able to see here there are slight differences in the finish. So what I think is the genuine item here has a bit more of a matte finish on it, whereas this non-genuine item is a little bit more shiny. Finally, I suppose, on what I think is the counterfeit item, I really ought to try and measure the length of the chain. I'm not expecting this will show anything, but it does. And that's a reflection of that movement that I felt in the edge of the chain. Let's try a different position. That's showing 75% chain wear, and this is a new chain. At the outset of this video, I wasn't 100% sure that these were counterfeit items, but having taken that measurement, I am now convinced they are counterfeit. If you've had a counterfeit chain and you've had experiences with it wearing out quickly or not working at all, please let me know. These chains that I bought from eBay are obviously substandard, and I'll be returning them for a refund. From me, for now, it's goodbye. If I show you the back of the packaging, all the details seem fairly similar, However, this one says KMC headquarters, and there's no space between the KMC and headquarters. This one says KMC headquarters, and it has a small space in there. There are similar issues in terms of spacing of some of the other lettering on there. The patent numbers are different, which I wouldn't expect. Although on this link, the KMC lettering seems to be well disposed around the hole in the chain. The slash across this X bridge actually goes to the edge of the chain. Now that could cause an additional stress concentration about here, which could reduce the reliability because fatigue could initiate there, and eventually the chain could break. This is just speculation, but it's not the sort of thing that I would want to gamble with. Now, this isn't something that I'll necessarily be easily able to demonstrate on the video, because you may not see it, because it really comes down to feel. But if I take the genuine item here and I try to rock that backwards and forwards, I can't really feel any movement in that. I can just see a slight movement, but not really very much. Whereas if I take what I think is the counterfeit item, I can feel that moving backwards and forwards. And I think the movement is slightly more than on what I think is the genuine item. So the tolerances on what I think are the counterfeit item are slightly slacker than they are on the original. This brand new counterfeit chain is the equivalent of being worn out. If I put this on my bike now, it would rapidly wear the chain rings and the cassette, and that would cost me a lot of money in the long run. So I'm not going to use these chains.